Welcome back dito sa channel natin. And for today's video, ipapakita na naman natin yung panibang video na ni Magnus Carlsen. So, ito ipapakita natin yung kanyang mga naging laro na sobrang bilis na pagkapanalo niya. So, ito na.
Magnus Carlsen, the #1 ranked player in the world, is so good at chess that he wins almost all his games with complete dominance. And while sometimes it can take hours to defeat his opponents, here are some of Magnus's fastest wins, where he destroyed his opponents within moments. Starting with this game against Sergei Karyakin.
So, dito ang kalaban niya si Sergei Karyakin. He is a super grandmaster. Napakataas din ng kanyang pwede rating by the time. Naging isang world champion din yan.
An extremely strong super grandmaster who has beaten nearly everyone. But this didn't scare Magnus, and with both players having 3 minutes on the clock, Magnus quickly started the game playing his pawn to e4, which Sergei responded to with e5. And after the first few developing moves, the position quickly turns into the Roy Lopez opening, which Magnus is more than familiar with. After trading the knight and bishop, Magnus instantly develops his knight, knowing exactly what to do. Sergei then castles, making Magnus consider options for a few seconds before castling his own king. After a few more moves being played, Magnus attacks Sergei's knight, which Sergei attacks and Magnus moves back, making Sergei think for a very long time before playing his pawn to g5. A big mistake. Magnus plays his pawn to g4, attacking.
So, kung titingnan natin ang kanyang posisyon dito nung D5 nga si Karyakin Sergei, is napakalaking mali niya doon kasi posibleng ma-open ang kanyang king side. And alam naman natin kung gaano ka galing ni Magnus Carlsen sa pag-atake ng king side.
Sergei's bishop, and while the best move for Sergei here is to take Magnus's bishop, he retreats. Another mistake. This is the beginning of the end for Sergei. And after moving his bishop back, Magnus starts launching a huge attack, quickly bringing his pieces close.
So, kita natin dito na halos karamihan ng pieces ni Carlsen, what I mean yung kanyang mga official, is papunta na sa king side ng Super Grandmaster Sergei Karyakin.
Closer and closer to Sergei's wide open king. After Sergei moves his knight to e6, Magnus takes the open file, planning to use it to attack Sergei's king. Sergei knows.
Again, let's give credit to the owner of this video, none other than Classical. So you can also subscribe na lang din sa kanya. So thank you for sharing.
He's in trouble. Now spending more time thinking, and after trading 2 knights and bishops, the two exchange a few more moves before Magnus trades rooks, bringing his queen in the game, which after Sergei attacks, Magnus plays queen g6 check, winning a pawn, and then winning a rook exchange. And after a few more shuffling pieces, Magnus delivers the final blow, moving his pawn to f6, which threatens checkmate after queen g6.
So kita natin kung gaano kaganda ng posisyon ni Magnus Carlsen dito kasi nga napaka-active ng kanyang pawn tsaka ng kanyang rook. And na-rookless na din dito si Super Grandmaster Karyakin Sergei.
7, completely destroying Sergei's chances at beating Magnus. But after the entire game, Magnus still had nearly 2 minutes left on his clock, spending only around a minute to defeat the Super.
Imagine, in just 1 minute natalo ni Magnus Carlsen, isang super
grandmaster. But this is nothing compared to Magnus's match with Fidemaster Espen Agdestein. Magnus starts with moving his pawn to g3.
So dito naman, ang kanyang kalaban, isang Fidemaster,
which Agdestein responds to with d5, the king's fianchetto opening. After both players develop their starting pieces, Magnus strikes the center, moving his pawn to e4. A few more pieces are developed before both players castle, and a set of pawns are traded off. Magnus here plays c4, aggressively pressuring his opponent to take the pawn. Agdestein starts tapping the table impatiently with a piece. A few moves after, and Magnus brings his knights into the game, having them both.
So actually, guys, nakakatakot din kasi sa mga moves ni Magnus Carlsen is napaka-active na kanya mga yokabab o yung tinatawag natin na knight. Ginagamit niya madalas yan. Ang galing ng kanyang mga maneuvering na kanyang knight. So, sa mga previous games, Baka mag-feature tayo ng mga mas marami pang games ni Magnus Carlsen para makita natin kung gaano kagaling siya mag-maneuver na kanyang knight.
Lining up to Agdestein's king, about to prepare a deadly attack. After playing his pawn to h6 and Magnus bringing his queen in, Agdestein makes a grave error, taking Magnus's knight, allowing Magnus to bring his rook into the game. Magnus then lines up his rook to Agdestein's king, looking for checkmating possibilities. Agdestein then moves his king to h8, allowing Magnus to grab a free pawn before trading the knight and bishop, bringing his queen closer to Agdestein's king. Magnus is now just looking for the killer move, which he finds after moving his rook to g6.
So, dito kita natin kung gaano ka-active nga ang ginawa nga ni Magnus Carlsen sa kanyang mga opisyal. So, dito, ang kanyang dark bishop na long diagonal, kung pwede niyang gawing pang-sacrifice yan para kainin kung yung queen or kung hindi siya kakain, baka posibleng mamate yung kalaban niya, yung PD Master. So, tingnan natin kung ano mangyayari.
Which after Agdestein thinks about, defends by moving his knight to f6, which does nothing. Magnus takes Agdestein's pawn with his bishop before forcing a trade in pieces, allowing Magnus to deliver a forced checkmate. Magnus Carlsen only used 18 seconds.
Imagine ginamitan lang siya na 18 seconds ni Magnus Carlsen para talunin.
To destroy this chess master. But in Magnus Carlsen's next game, he was about to defeat Bill.
Actually, itong next game, ang kalaban niya is none other than one of the billionaire, si Bill Gates. Alam naman natin kung gaano kayaman siya. Actually, naimbita lang si Magnus Carlsen sa isang show. So, I think medyo nagkaroon nga ng paglalaro between them. So, maybe gusto lang din makita ni Bill Gates kung ano yung kakayahan ni Magnus Carlsen.
Gates, the richest man alive, while only using 12 seconds on the clock. Bill Gates, having the white pieces, confidently started with e4. Magnus responds by moving his knight to c6 before Bill moves his knight to f3. Magnus plays d5, quickly pressuring Gates to either take his pawn or be taken, which Gates responds to with a third option, defending the pawn with his bishop. Magnus starts with knight f6, adding more pressure on Gates' pawn, before the d and e pawns are finally traded off, bringing Magnus' queen into the equation. Magnus' pieces were starting to come active, while Gates' pieces seemed pretty passive. Gates then attacks Magnus' queen, which Magnus almost immediately moves out of the way. This move seems to confuse Bill Gates. Looking at the chessboard, not being able to see which move to play, it's in this position Bill Gates decides to castle. The worst possible move in the position, with Magnus' pieces already surrounding his king.
Sa ginawa ni Bill Gates, binigyan niya lang si Magnus Carlsen ng napakagandang attacking for the king side nga ni Bill Gates. So, tingnan natin kung gaano ka-active ng kanyang queen, knight, at saka ng bishop, long diagonal white square.
Magnus plays bishop g3, putting a double pin on Gates' queen while also threatening some nasty attacks. Magnus instantly brings his knight in. He takes Magnus' seemingly free bishop, which Magnus expects, and while everything seems safe to Gates, the position is completely lost, and with Gates taking...
Kita natin dito kapag nawala na nga yung knight, matic, Bill Gates will be mated.
Magnus' knight, like a complete beginner, Magnus Carlsen delivers the final move. Queen h2 checkmate.
Oh, that was quick. Oh, that was bad.
He managed to defeat the richest man in the world in only 9 moves, using less than 12 seconds. But Magnus' next feat is much more impressive, as when facing a famous explorer named Lars Monsen.
So, etong kalaban niya naman, one of the greatest explorer and also napakagaling din sa larangan ng chess. None other than si Lars Monsen,
who is also a very strong chess player. Magnus would only have a few seconds on his clock to checkmate.
So yun nga, si Magnus meron siyang time na 30 seconds, while si Lars meron siyang 3 minutes.
His next famous opponents. Magnus starts the game by moving his pawn to e4, which his opponent responds to with c5, the Sicilian defense, and after their starting pieces are developed, Magnus starts the first move of his attack, moving his knight to a square looking to fork Monsen's pieces, forcing a trade, bringing his queen into the game. Already, Monsen is in a bout of trouble, attacking Magnus's queen, which Magnus retreats before both players develop a few more pieces and Monsen castles. After Monsen moves, Magnus starts pushing pawns towards Monsen's king, creating a big attack. Monsen spends a lot of his time thinking before retreating his knight, allowing Magnus to bring his knight in and push his pawn before trading off knights, taking Monsen's pawn. If Monsen takes this pawn, he's in big trouble, as Magnus's rook would come in, causing
So, kita natin dito kung gaano naka-expose ng king side ni Lars Monsen. So, napaka-active din ng dalawang bishop ni Magnus Carlsen sa dark square diagonal and sa white square diagonal.
problems for his king. Monsen pushes his pawn forward, but Magnus brings his rook into the game before taking another pawn, then bringing his queen closer towards Monsen's king. And after a couple more moves, Monsen plays his queen to f7, allowing Magnus to capture it for free.
So, maybe nagpanic na din siguro si Lars kasi nga hindi napansin na masyado nang mababa ang kanyang time. And by that time, nag-blunder nga siya. Hindi niya napansin na kakainin na pala ang kanyang queen. So by that time, automatic, pag wala ka ng queen, kalaban mo is the Super Grandmaster, you expect the worst.
Queen blunder. It is at this moment Monsen drops the clock, wasting a few seconds of Magnus's clock time before Magnus surrounds Monsen's king and promotes his.
So yun nga, bago pa nga nag-drop yung time ni Lars Monsen, Magnus Carlsen do all the things na para lang ma-mate si Lars. Again, kung meron kayong nakuha sa video natin for today, and hope to see you again sa next video natin. Bye!